Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we are now on the 8th spot of a 12-team mock draft. And again, single quarterback, full PPR, so hopefully this helps you guys out. We are really going into draft weekend for the most redrafts. We might get some dynasty drafting going on, somebody who wants to kind of get thrown into it, but realistically, this is redraft season, so we are in the final weekend before the NFL season starts. Again, 8th spot of a 12-team league, and I'll be finishing out this 12-team mock draft, rounding that out. And of course, we'll be jumping right into the start and sit videos coming this week. So make sure you guys stay tuned. All right, so as you can see here, I am at the 8th spot of a 12-team league. Again, this is somewhat at the sweet spot. I typically will probably say the 5th through the 7th of a 12-team league is the sweet spot. But I still think you get really good talent in the 8th spot. And of course, getting a really good person in the 2nd round that I think will help you obviously win your league. So let's see how this kind of plays out for, the computer. They always do some crazy stuff. So starting off, you see Tyreek, Lamb, McCaffrey, Robinson, good running backs. I actually don't mind what they did here. This is probably going to be something you're probably going to see in most of your home leagues, or if you're joining some random leagues out there. So pretty common here. I actually don't hate it. So with that said, I'm going to go and grab Breece Hall because you guys have been watching this. I typically will grab a running back in the 1st round. Unless I'm getting a talent like CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill, then obviously I'll try to grab those guys if I can. Now, running backs typically will start to go the end of the 1st, beginning of the 2nd round, which is pretty common. Now, I could go obviously and grab another running back here and getting somebody that would be, again, hero running back strat. That's just something we've talked about. Obviously, you could do the 0 running back strategy, which is pretty common. Looking at this, grabbing another running back like Travis Etienne, it's really tempting. But I'm actually going to end up grabbing Drake London here. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Drake London when it comes to fantasy. I think he is being drafted a little too high because of the way he's been able to finish. I got to give him the benefit of the doubt because this year he's going to have a quarterback that's actually pretty decent. Kirk Cousins has the potential of turning Drake London into a top tier wide receiver, could potentially be a wide receiver 1. So there's a lot of upside. It's a lot of risk in the 2nd round. I'd rather play for a safer floor if possible, but you're not going to get Drake London in the 3rd round. It's just nearly impossible. And realistically, I hate to say it, I'm going to grab Drake London over Puka Nacua because I do have some concerns with Puka Nacua's injury. That's something that could linger in the season. We'll see. He's expecting to play week 1. But also, I do think a healthy Cooper Kupp will affect Puka a little bit. Right now, Drake London has Darnell Mooney and Kyle Pitts to kind of compete with, and obviously Bijan in the backfield. But I think Drake London really comes into the season pretty strong. So obviously, some of the quarterbacks going, not too surprising, some tight ends. Again, I'm going to try to grab those players a little bit later. I think you get better value in a draft later on. So looking at the options here, I'm going to pair up my Drake London pick with Nico Collins. Again, another premier wide receiver, getting both of my 2 wide receiver 1s kind of early. And then that way I can kind of target the running back room if possible. And with that, I'm going to go James Cook. So I feel really good about this starting lineup. Breece Hall, James Cook, London, Nico, I feel really good about that. Now, had Cooper Kupp actually gone there, I think I probably would have taken him because I actually really like Cooper Kupp and he's been falling in a lot of drafts. So if I can get him, especially in the 4th round, I'm going to grab him every shot I can. So I've got obviously my essential starting lineup when it comes to wide receivers and running backs. Now I've got to grab some depth. I, again, will grab a tight end or quarterback later on. Looking at the options that I've got here, Pickens, Higgins, Swift, Connor, things like that. I'm going to try to grab Connor in the 6th round. We'll see how that plays out. I'm going to grab Amari Cooper to get another really good wide receiver. You're hoping, like myself, that Deshaun Watson shows up and actually has a really good season. He has yet to do that since he's gone to Cleveland, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's going to have that type of year. So I feel really good about Amari Cooper because he's probably one of the most consistent wide receivers in the NFL who consistently gets just overlooked. Kind of like Mike Evans, just consistently overlooked, but a really good wide receiver. Now, James Conner did go. Kind of sucks because, again, Conner's going to be somebody who's going to get plenty of red zone action. He's a really good running back that, again, like I mentioned with Amari Cooper, does get overlooked as well. So I can't get him there. I would like to get another running back if possible, just to kind of fill everything out. But I feel like it's a reach for Ramondre Stevenson or a reach even for Najee Harris. So I do worry about that. I'd have to go and grab the best player available. And looking at the best player available, that's between Christian Kirk and Rashee Rice. Now, as far as weapons go and quarterback play, I'm going to give the edge just slightly to Rashee Rice. Even though Christian Kirk is great and I think he's a good option for that Jaguars offense, I'll grab my fourth receiver here and get Rashee Rice. So now looking at the 7th round, I could have gone and, again, might fill my tight end spot. Evan Ingram's available here. Great option. I can obviously get another player. Now looking at what I've got here, I could possibly get Njoku on the swing, in the 8th round. So I'm going to grab Zamir White. Right now, I get the hesitation with Zamir White. There's a lot of expectation of possibly Alexander Mattison having some touches. Zamir White really hasn't played a full season. We'll see how things go. I think they like him a lot. I do have worries. Because he's my 3rd running back, I'm not overly concerned, so I don't feel bad about grabbing him there. But again, I think it's worth grabbing in the 7th or 8th round. I don't think there's any risk at that at all. Now, Evan Ingram did go. I was going to try to grab him on the swing route. I will grab my tight end here and grab in David Njoku. Hate to pair up, obviously, two team players like, Njoku and Amari on the same team, but I think both of them will get some options. And I think Njoku really shined. Like, again, somebody that was able to really show up towards the end of the season. A lot, obviously, I will contribute to Joe Flacco. I think Flacco was the reason Njoku had some really good success, and then Elijah Moore got hurt a little bit, and then, things like that. But I like that play there. I've got 4 more spots on my bench, plus I still got to get my quarterback. Now, looking at the quarterback options, you've got Tua, who was a top 10 quarterback last season. I think he's getting overlooked just because, obviously, you've got players like Jaden Daniels, who might have some success, Anthony Richardson, who's back, hopefully healthy. Jordan Love started to show up, Purdy. So there's a lot of players that you didn't think about last season. But again, this year, Tua is still a potential top 10 quarterback who is now being pushed outside of that, and he's got some great value there. Now, looking at what I've got, I don't know if I'm going to grab him quite yet because I really do want to start filling out still better player options. So looking at those options, you got Brian Thomas, who I like. I think he's going to have a great season. I can grab DeAndre Hopkins, even though I know he's obviously coming into the season with some injuries. A little bit of a risk there. Gus Edwards is a great option if you want to have another running back that has red zone potential, just like Ezekiel Elliott. But with Dalvin Cook being signed, Zeke's value might have changed just a little bit. So I'm not going to go that route. I'll end up grabbing Gus Edwards here because I think Gus Edwards does have some value for the Chargers offense. He could end up being a pretty solid running back going into the season. I'm not expecting him to be like the sole running back. Like, he's still going to have, sharing time with, J.K. Dobbins or something like that. But again, with the red zone ability, where he has value, I think that's going to be worth it. Now, my quarterbacks did go Tua, Jared Goff. I'm going to actually end up grabbing Jaden Daniels for the upside because his rushing ability is, again, something to consider. He may end up actually squeaking into the top 10 just because of his rushing ability alone. He's got some work to do. He only really has Terry McLaurin. I do like the addition of Noah Brown that they'd picked up after he was released, but there's not a lot of options. Ben Sinnott is a good option. Obviously you got Eckler, Brian Robinson, but not a lot of weapons for Jaden Daniels and an offensive line that's a little shaky. So if you do draft Jaden Daniels, understand it's a boom or bust pick. You may want to have a backup quarterback option, which I may end up drafting just in case Daniels does not have the success I'm hoping for. So now it's, again, depth pieces. So looking at the depth pieces, I've got obviously Charbonnet, Chuba Hubbard, who's obviously RB1 going into the season. You got obviously Khalil Shakir, who's essentially going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Buffalo Bills, and then obviously I can grab another tight end if I need to. I'm actually going to end up going and grab Chuba Hubbard because, again, Chuba Hubbard will at least start the season as the RB1 for the Panthers in the first 4 games. He probably will have value throughout the rest of the season, but understand he's not going to have the same value in the first month or so like he would obviously any other time because of Jonathan Brooks. And I understand that. I understand the risk there. Looking at options as far as depth, I do like some of the wide receivers that are still here. Jerry Jeudy might have some success, right? But again, I already have some Cleveland players. Rashid Shaheed have some success. Not a lot of options there. Then you got players like Wicks. Again, a lot of upside. A lot of uncertainty in that offense. Joshua Palmer could end up being the wide receiver one for Herbert. I know a lot of obviously people put McConkey there, but looking at the options here, I'm going to take the sleeper route and go Jalen Polk, because I think Jalen Polk might actually be a surprise going into the season. I don't need him to be a big star because I've got players like Rashee Rice on my bench, Amari Cooper, and obviously Nico and Drake. So Polk is a good option to kind of sleep on. I've got one spot left on my bench, and obviously kicker and defense. I'm going to grab my quarterback here. I'm going to grab Matthew Stafford because, again, Matthew Stafford could obviously have a top 12 season, especially with both wide receivers being, pretty much healthy and hopefully all season long. So I've got obviously my backup here. I could have gotten a backup tight end route too, like Ben Sinnott, who obviously just went off the board. Now I've got to finish up everything. Looking at defense, I'm going to go grab the Dallas Cowboys. Losing Deron Bland does hurt, but they still have obviously Trayvon Diggs. I do like the secondary. I do like the addition of Mike Zimmer. I do like obviously Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Eric Kendricks at linebacker, Damari Overshown. I mean, there's a lot of great options there. So again, Dallas is the top premier defense. And then kickers, looking at the options here between all of these guys, Jason Myers is probably the best option for the Seattle Seahawks because, again, they are a team that at least will potentially get down the field, get into red zone territory and field goal territory. So I feel really good about that. All right, so that is the 8th spot of a 12-team draft. Again, hopefully you guys are seeing some success in these drafts. If you guys have questions about them, hit me up in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have. Of course, if you haven't already, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Like the video as well. We'll be pushing out all our starting set videos real soon. Of course, waiver wire videos. I'll talk some sleepers that maybe are going on this upcoming season. Again, first game's Thursday, Friday, and then Sunday and Monday. So I'm excited. I'm sure you guys are excited. Week 1 is just about here. Have a great draft. Hit that subscribe button. I'll check you guys out next time.